Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Raising Healthy Mothers. Today, I'm really pleased to welcome Amy Crumpton onto the show. Amy is CEO of the Social Cactus and currently pregnant for the first time. A little detail which is really important and will be obvious very shortly. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, newly pregnant. It's all very new, very exciting. And I'm really happy to be here and just sharing my story with all of your listeners.
Yeah, exactly. So that is what you're here for, essentially. So I've given you a really brief intro, but I like to get my guests to
Yeah.
tell us about themselves. So please, could you introduce yourself, and just let us know why it's relevant that you're here, pregnant for the first time.
Yes. So a lot of people know me as Amy, the business and mindset coach from Social Cactus Coaching, which is a 7-year-old coaching business now. And just recently, I have set up a brand new brand, so to speak, called Your Mama Era. And the reason why I decided to do that is because when I fell pregnant, I just felt like I needed an outlet, somewhere to share my pregnancy journey. And I also went through a bit of a period in the business in Social Cactus where I felt so ready for a change. I felt that identity shift almost immediately. And I know that we're going to probably talk about that a little bit today. And I just felt that I was so ready to do something new and something different, but I didn't really know what that looked like. And then when I did become pregnant, I had this kind of epiphany moment where it's like, I don't really see any real support for pregnant women who are business owners and what to do when they fall pregnant and how to manage their business, how to take an extended maternity leave if that's what they want to do, how to manage finances, how to make sure the business was ticking over and ready for people to come back to work if that's what they wanted to do. And I just had this light bulb moment of that's what I want to help people with. So that's why Your Mama Era was born. And I kind of have pivoted and changed direction a little bit now within Social Cactus to support women who are either pregnant right now or they're planning to have a baby and they want to, I call it baby proof their business so that their business is going to be set up and ready for them to enjoy their pregnancy, take a good maternity leave, and then continue to support them when they come back to work, when and if they choose to do that.
Mm. And you know what? This is the thing that really caught my eye actually and was like, right, I need to get Amy on. Because when I was pregnant with my son, my eldest, I was like, right, I know I want to take a long leave. I don't want to
Yeah.
look back on this and regret it. At that time, my business was really in that foundation, like very like building
Yeah.
audience stage anyway. So financially, it wasn't like I was suddenly like, oh my God, where's it going to go? But I was like, but I don't want to lose what work I have already done. So I did. I worked. It was the first time I decided to invest one to one with a coach, and I was like, right, I'm going to spend this money. I think this is going to be worth it. And I said to her, I am pregnant and I want to take a decent amount of time off. I don't really know how long, but I want to take more than just like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And, and I want it so that I can, like, I want something to come back to. That's what I set it up. I want something to come back to. I want it set up for you to feel like I can come back to this. And she wasn't a mum herself. And I think that was where I went wrong because she didn't really get it, I think. Um, and so that's why it really caught my eye because I was like, I didn't really feel like I set myself up. And in the end, actually, ended up taking almost a full year and, did almost have to start from scratch again. But that was okay. Like I said, financially, it wasn't like a big thing anyway.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a big deal from that point of view, but it did feel like I was starting from scratch again.
Yeah.
And so that's why I thought, okay, let's get Amy on to first talk about having a business and then pivoting and kind of thinking about how that's going to look when you become a mum and things change so completely. But I also wanted to talk about because I know a lot of mums have their babies, go on maternity leave, come to the end of maternity leave and go, well, I don't want to go back to full-time work or
Yeah.
9 to 5 or go back to the office. This is actually what I'm enjoying and I want to stay here, but financially we can't do that. So that's kind of two separate things, I guess, to talk about. Um, but the other thing is that I think has been really interesting watching you on Your Mama Era, the new kind of brand that you talked about, is that you've been really open about the fact that you are in your late 30s and deciding to have a baby has come very late in life because before that you thought you were not going to have kids at all. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. How did that change? How did that decision come about?
Gosh, so when I said I was pregnant, my friends and family were so shocked. They never, ever, ever thought those words would come out of my mouth because, yeah, you're right. Like I've made no secret of the fact that I didn't think I wanted children for the majority of my life. And I've thought about this long and hard. Like, why did I think I didn't want kids? And I'm someone that kind of, I haven't done things the normal way. I've lived a life traveling the world, and when I was younger, I was in like different jobs and doing different things. I never really knew what I wanted to do. And then I discovered my love of traveling and adventure and going off here, there, and everywhere. And I just didn't think that having children was something that was part of my future. Like I didn't understand how I could have a child and continue to travel the world and live this lifestyle. And then I got to a point a couple of years ago, it was 2 years ago, literally to the day. And I just went through this really strange time in my life where I had everything. I had a successful business. I was traveling the world. I was living in Dubai. I had an amazing partner. And I just felt there was something so missing and so empty. And I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. And I started experiencing anxiety and all of these feelings and emotions that I have never, ever, ever felt before. And I did a lot of healing work around this and worked with energy coaches and different types of coaches. And I was like, what's going on with me? Like, what's wrong with me? I've gone from this really positive, energetic person to feeling so down and like there's something missing. And then the more I dug into this, I realized that actually I did want to become a mom and I did want to have a family. And I'd kind of exhausted that chapter of my life. And I was so ready to settle down and start a family. And then I questioned, is it because I'm getting older? Is it because time's running out? And I'm starting to think, if I don't do it now, when will I do it? And I just had this feeling that in 10 years from now, I couldn't imagine continuing to feel this kind of missing piece, so to speak. And I thought, I really think having children is the thing that I want to do. And I spoke to my partner about this, and because he's always felt the same way, he never really wanted to have children either. And as soon as I said it, he went, oh my God, like I've been feeling the same way. And I was like, you are joking. Anyway, we didn't rush into it because I said, what I don't want to happen is have this like split decision and think, right, this is it. I want to have kids now. And then realize actually, no, that was just a bit of a phase I was going through. So it took me 2 years to really decide and cement that, yeah, this is absolutely something that we want to do, and we want to try and start having a family, because who knew if we even could get pregnant? Like that was another thing on my mind as well, like with my age and everything, like what if it takes me a couple of years to fall pregnant, and then what if I miss the boat? And all these different thoughts and feelings are going around in my mind. And then once that decision was made, it was all I could think about for months and months and months and months. And when we did start trying, I found that really stressful as well. Like, the waiting, the wondering, like, is it going to be this month? And then your period comes along and you're like, oh, it didn't happen. And then every time I had that feeling of like utter disappointment, it just cemented the fact that this is 100% what it is that I want to do. And thank goodness, I'm so blessed and so grateful that it didn't really take us too long to fall pregnant. And then I just couldn't believe it when it had happened. Like, wow, it's happening and it's real. And I just felt like this is exactly how it was supposed to happen.
Yeah, amazing. And it's so interesting because it's a bit taboo, isn't it, to say I don't want to have children. Like
Oh
that's a
God,
bit
yeah.
of a as a woman. But then to switch and to change and then your identity is I'm going to be a woman of my own right without children, and that's my life. And then suddenly to change, well, not suddenly, 2 years later,
Yeah.
to kind of really decide this is the thing, again is almost like, did you have any other, like, friends who had made that same decision who were a bit like, "Oh, I see." Like, did
Yeah,
you
so I'd had a lot of friends who decided by choice not to have children. And then I also had a lot of friends who did decide to have children. But because I was never in that mindset, I just couldn't imagine myself having kids. Like, even when they did, I was like, that looks great for them, but just not for me. And then I've had a couple of friends who later in life, they decided to fall pregnant and have a baby. And I thought, it is possible when you get a little bit older. It doesn't mean that, if you wait until you're in your 30s that you've missed your chance. Like you can live your life first and then decide to have a family. And I think the real turning point was when my brother, he's a little bit younger than me, he just had a baby who turns 3. So not a baby anymore, but he turns 3 this month. And I think it was seeing him grow up and him develop and getting to spend time with him. And I was just so obsessed with spending as much time as possible with my nephew. And because I lived away, I never really got that much opportunity to do that. And then seeing him grow up, I was like, oh, I really feel like that that was the eye-opening thing that happened that made me realize that I want that too. So yeah, it is a little bit taboo. And you know what's so hilarious? I was actually featured in the press once sharing my views on being child free by choice. And now I'm like, I might have to retract that.
And but also that's okay. Like I
Yeah.
feel like as women, like we feel like we have to be boxed. Oh, I've decided to be child free and that's it. That's my decision. I can never
Yeah.
change my mind. But that's ridiculous. I mean, men never have to make that kind of statement, do they? They just might or they might not, and they can do it in their 60s, you know.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, isn't it? But you're not in Dubai anymore, are you? You're back in the UK.
Yes. So another big factor deciding to have children was I wanted to be back in the UK around my friends and family. I didn't want to do this on my own, and I didn't want to be, I didn't want to not have that support around me, and I didn't want my mom to miss out on seeing her grandchild grow up. And that was a big decision that we would start trying for a family when we moved back to the UK. We actually did start trying a little bit before, but when we moved back to the UK, it was like that's when it actually all happened, and that's when I fell pregnant.
Mm,
So yeah, it kind of just all worked out now, and I feel so settled and so safe. And that's another thing that happened when I was traveling. I felt so unsettled and so ungrounded that I couldn't even begin to imagine raising a child like
mm,
that.
mm.
Because we did have a home in the UK which we rented out, so we just moved back into our home. We're just currently getting it redecorated and refurbished, of course, because I'm pregnant, and that's apparently what pregnant people do. They decide to decorate their entire house and change everything. So yeah, I'm feeling so settled now, which is just fabulous.
Yeah, and I think that safety and security is actually a really key part. It's like your body
Mm.
knows, right? Okay, you were trying in Dubai, but it wasn't really happening. And then you come back here and it's like, okay, this is the safe place. This is where you've got that support network, where you've got the people. And I really like find it interesting what you said about watching your nephew grow up, because I do like that relationship with the nephew. I have two nephews as well, who are older than my children, and I kind of agree. Like it was like this is such a special relationship that you have compared to like your friends' children, which is a bit different. And I find that really interesting that that kind of helped cement that idea that yes,
Yeah.
this is different. This is something
Yeah.
that I want
And
to.
he was the first baby in the family as well. So we've never really had any other babies apart from when, my cousins were small. And we're all pretty much around the same age, only a couple of years between us all. So there's never been a baby in the family. So having Lucas in the family now is like, he's a star of the show. Everything's about Lucas, and it's amazing. And I'm like, Lucas, there's another baby coming. Not sure how he feels about that yet, but
He's gonna have to share that spotlight. So how do you feel like your identity has shifted since so you've gone from not wanting a child to trying for one, now you're pregnant. How has that shifted and what surprised you about that?
oh my God, everything has surprised me. I have become everything that I thought I would never be. And I think that's why I started the Your Mama era, because I am fully in my mama era right now. I am fully embracing it and researching everything. I'm listening to like all the podcasts, reading all the books, like just doing as much research, but in a fun way, not like, oh my God, I have to know all this stuff. It's more just because I'm really interested
Yeah.
in finding out about it. And it's so surprising to me how it's just been like an overnight switch. Like somebody just turned a light on, and I'm like, oh, I'm a mother now. And it's such an interesting feeling because I've never experienced it before.
Yeah, amazing. And I totally identify with that actually. That
Yeah.
kind of like so interested in finding things out and yeah, amazing. So let's talk about the business then. So how are things changing? How have you changed the way you're approaching your business now that you're pregnant and you know you've got this finite amount of time before the baby comes along?
Yes. So I actually started implementing changes before we even started trying to get pregnant, because I knew that it was something that I really wanted to make sure that I had in place, so that, I didn't know how I was going to feel during pregnancy. In my mind, I was going to be sick as a dog, just feeling so terrible. And thank God I haven't had any sickness. I haven't been sick during pregnancy, which I'm like,
Amazing.
oh, I'm so grateful for that. I just have had the most extreme exhaustion
Mm.
and fatigue. Like that has hit me like I didn't expect to feel that way. So when I was making these changes before I fell pregnant, like I said, I had no idea how I was going to feel. So I didn't want to be so full on and having to do like intense launches or be fully booked with clients back to back on calls or anything like that, when I knew that I might need some flexibility to be able to just kind of take a little step back. So the things that I put in place was closing down some programs, switching up the team a little bit, implementing some new services and offers so that I did have more of that flexibility and freedom depending on how I felt at the time. And I am so glad that I did that, because I've seen
Mm.
a lot of other people in business and they fall pregnant and it's like they feel the pressure that they've got to make as much money as they physically can in this short window of time to be able to take time off with for the maternity. But then what happens is, because they sign all these clients, they have to service them somehow. So they end up having to rush back to work to service all these clients that they've just signed. And then they feel that they haven't been able to take that time off
Mm.
or have that freedom to have the time that they actually really wanted to take. And I just thought to myself, like, I really don't want that to be me. I really want to make sure that I can take an extended maternity. I'm planning to take off a full year. I don't know how I'll feel, like, I might want to come back sooner or I might want to take even longer off, but I'm giving myself a full year at least. And then I can decide what I want to do when I come back to work. But yeah, I started implementing those changes way before we even
Mm.
decided to start trying.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I think the idea of like either making loads and loads of money or even like just powering through and just like, well, nothing's changed. I'm just going to keep going. Like I just happen to be growing a baby, but not
Yeah.
really honoring the fact that, like you said, you might be completely exhausted. I mean, that is definitely an aspect that, we don't really realize actually how how
Oh my
exhausting it
God.
is
Yeah.
in the first trimester when you're supposed to not be telling anyone about it.
Yes, exactly. And you know what? I feel like I've been lied to, because everyone said as soon as you hit that second trimester, you're going to feel great. And I was waiting week by week, like another week would pass. I'm like, when's it going to happen? And then I'd have the odd day where I'd feel really energized. I'd think, this is it. I've turned a corner. And then the day after, back to square one, feeling absolutely wiped out again. And it's only since I hit the 20-week mark. So I'm like 22 weeks and 3 days. Can't forget the 3 days. That's very important. Those 3 days mean a lot. Now, for the past couple of weeks, I consistently had a lot more energy and felt a lot more motivated, and can achieve more than one task in a day now. So that's a bonus.
Mm, yeah, exactly. And in a way that's the beauty, right, of running your own business is that you get to decide, if you were in a 9 to 5 and you would just have to keep going
Oh
in and keep
God.
powering through and
Yeah.
not really telling anyone until you're at the 12-week mark and not being able to like say, I just need to lie down. um, but but we need to do that rather than just like you said, like putting the pressure on or powering through and just kind of keep going. Like it's got to be that take that flexibility option.
Absolutely. And I think that's another reason why I decided to pivot and change direction as well, because I know there's a lot of support out there for people who fall pregnant. And, I understand that people who are pregnant will probably need a little bit more flexibility in terms of coaching times. And do you want to do it as a video call or just do it as an audio call? Maybe you don't want to be on camera today. And, maybe you're feeling absolutely atrocious and you just need to reschedule the call. Like, I'm so, like, before I would never really have even thought of that as being an option for people. But now I'm like, no, I get it. Like, you still want to continue to make progress, but you just need to do it in a little, slightly different. So having that flexibility for people was so important to me as well when setting up these new services that I've created.
Yeah, 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 definitely. So you talked about baby proofing the business. So
Yeah.
you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what would you say are like the key steps to take to baby proof the business?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously going to look so different for every single person, depending on what it is that they do, what types of clients they're working with, how they're working with clients, what they want their maternity leave to look like as well. So when I'm thinking about baby proofing the business, it means that you are then able to take that maternity leave, and then it's also set up for your return as well. So I would say to people to start thinking about what they want their maternity leave to look like. Is it going to be an extended time away? Do you want to do anything at all on your business during that time? Because you can obviously decide to just pause the business, close down offers and services, and then come back to it when you're ready. Or it might look like that you've got some passive offers and passive products running in the background that it might require a small level of effort from you just to keep things ticking over. Or you could hire somebody as well to come in and act as a bit of a manager whilst you're away, just managing any customer requests or any emails that come in and things like that. Because I think when sometimes people hear about passive income and making money, do it once and just make the money, there's always an element that you have to do something, with the marketing of that, with servicing clients. Maybe there's questions that come in or requests or things like that you do need to have your finger on the pulse a little bit. And it wouldn't be very great for business if you just left them for a whole year and didn't get back to the to any questions that came in. So I guess it depends on what you're expecting from your maternity leave as to how you would baby proof your own business.
Yeah. And do you know, I actually think even just having that conversation is valuable, because I think as a business owner, you just go, well, if it's not me, then it's no one. I have to just keep going. I can't possibly take that time off. And
Yeah,
I have to set something up, whatever that is. And actually just being told, just like almost like being given permission. Like if you want to take the full year, you can take
yeah,
the full year. And also you can take the full year or plan to take the full year and decide that actually you want to come back
yeah,
earlier. That's
exactly.
okay too. Like, and I
Yeah,
think I really genuinely think that would have been so valuable to me if I had heard that and be like, it's okay. Like, it's not going to, you're not destroying it by taking that time off.
yeah.
I think we get a lot of fear, right, as business owners that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think as well, because when you are the business and you are the one who's doing the marketing, signing the clients, so you're in charge of marketing, sales, customer service, delivery, like all of it. If you take that time off, you think, oh, my income's going to completely stop. And yes, it could, but there is other ways around that to ensure that the business still does continue to bring in income. And a lot of people think that because they're a business owner, that they're not able to take the same maternity as other people because what they're going to do financially. And yeah, it's a very valid question, a very valid point. If you're not working and you're not bringing money in, like what are you going to do? So this is why I think if you are in the planning stages right now, you do know that you want to start a family or grow a family or expand, whatever that looks like for you, start thinking about that now. Because if you can put aside money every single month to act as your maternity pay whilst you're off, and you don't have to worry about finances and rushing back to work and, oh, like, will I feel okay after a few weeks? And I've heard people coming back to work after just a few weeks and then they've said, my mind wasn't really in it, I should have had longer off. And I'm thinking, well, why did you think that you had to rush back so quickly? And like you said, a lot of business owners probably think they don't have that choice. And this is why I'm so passionate about spreading this message, because we all have choices. Just because we decided to start a business doesn't mean that we have to sacrifice being a new mom and spending time with our babies. There's always a way around it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. No, that's so reassuring actually, really more
Yeah,
than anything
yeah,
else. Um, and so what I kind of mentioned right at the start was quite often I find women are like, I don't really want to go back to my 9 to 5. Like I
yeah.
actually just want to do something different. But the idea of starting a new business is like terrifying. So do you have any like wisdom or suggestions or top tips for people who are maybe in that kind of headspace?
Yeah, I've worked with so many clients who they've signed up to work with me whilst on maternity leave because they've realized that they just don't want to go back to a 9 to 5. And let's be honest, how many people really work a 9 to 5 these days? They're setting off to work at like 7 a.m. and they're not getting home till 6 or whatever that might look like. And that's a crucial time to spend with your baby. And if you're missing out on that really valuable time, then of course you're going to want to do anything, to find an alternative solution. So I guess it depends on like what you're really passionate about as well, because I find that if you do have limited time available, let's say, you've always wanted to offer a particular service or be a coach or whatever that might look like. If you're so passionate about that and you've got limited time with a new baby, you're going to put in the effort to make it work. If it's something that you're like, oh, I just want to find a quick way to make some money, you're probably not going to have that same drive and passion and enthusiasm to work on it when you are exhausted, when you are really tired, when baby's napping, all those things. So I'd say finding something that you are super, super, super passionate about, and just getting started. Because if you don't start, you are never going to know. If you get started and it turns into something, absolutely fantastic. If it doesn't and you realize, actually, you know what, it's not really for me, but I gave it a go, then you'll never regret trying, basically.
Mm.
That's my piece of advice.
Yeah, and I think that is so helpful. You'll never regret trying, but also like it's okay to drop it. I think that's the other thing,
Yeah,
that there's a lot of pressure. You think, oh, I've started this business. I can't decide that it didn't work, because that's also possible. You can decide, actually, this isn't working out.
Yeah.
Try something different, or go back to your job and come back to it at another time. I think it often feels like everything has to be so set in stone, right, when it comes to
Yeah.
business. And actually, when you're doing it yourself, you get to choose. You get to
Yeah.
decide.
And another thing about business is it looks very glamorous from the outside, but when you are building a business, it takes a lot of grit, energy, determination, resilience, patience. And a lot of the time, people who are on maternity leave, they only give themselves a very short window of time for it to work. And if it doesn't work in
Yeah.
that small time, they think, oh, well, it hasn't worked. I'm just going to go back to my
Mm.
job. And we know the reality of building a business, it takes time and it takes patience. So it might not be that it happens in the space of a couple of months. It might be something that you do have to keep going at. And that's why I mentioned about something that you are passionate about, because when that passion is there, you don't mind spending a couple of hours here and there, like, trying to make it work. But if it's something that you're not that interested in and it was just a quick way to make some money, that passion, well, that excitement to work in the business is just kind of going to dwindle away quite quickly.
Yeah, exactly, and it's gonna be much
Yeah,
harder to keep going. Um,
exactly.
so let's, like, think ahead to when baby arrives. What are you excited about, like, running your business alongside being a mum, or do you have any worries about it?
Yeah, I think that's a really weird one because I'm someone who I can only help people with really like what I've been through. So although yeah, I've helped a lot of people who started a business on maternity. Like I didn't know what it was like to have a baby and build a business. I know how to help people to build a business, but like you were saying about the coach that you hired someone to help you that you hadn't actually been through that yet. So yeah, I feel like with the worry, I guess it's more so I don't know what it's going to be like to continue running the business and
Yeah.
having a newborn baby, which is why I'm giving myself that full year. And also, I've massively scaled back the business as well. So when I think back to a couple of years ago, the business became bigger than I could have ever imagined. And running the business of that size and then being pregnant and then going off on maternity, like it wouldn't really have happened that way. I would have had to have made changes anyway. So that's why I decided to really scale back, which works for me. Now that might not work necessarily for everybody, but where the business is right now, I know that I could come back when the baby's here and kind of build it back up again. So it was going to be starting at that, scaled back level and then build it up from there, depending on how I'm finding it. Because like I said, I've got no idea what to expect apart from being tired a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, that kind of goes back to, I guess, what I said right at the start, but also what we said earlier about planning, is because you don't know what to expect. You don't know
Yeah.
when you're going to feel up to coming back. And I mean, my personal experience from both of my children was, I kind of felt the first 3 months was like such a blur. Like I just basically felt like I was sleepwalking through it. And then they got to the 3 month mark, and I was like, actually, I'm ready to kind of be not just a mum again.
Yeah.
And they still sleeping quite a lot at that point. So it was like, actually, I can do a little bit of social media and a little bit of here and there, or maybe I can start again. And then they get to the 6 month mark and suddenly they're wide awake, and they're way like too much to handle. And so then you kind of go, oh, I've restarted, but now I've got to stop again because there's no way I can keep this
Yeah.
going. So I think that's the other thing about it, is that things do like ebb and flow across that first year. It just so much changes because they change so much. Um, and then when they get to the 9 month mark again, I was like, well, actually, I now mentally feel ready to move on. And with both of them, that was when I started kind of putting feelers back out again.
Yeah. So
Um,
for you then, was it like the 9 month mark that your brain kind of re-engaged and you were like,
yes,
I'm ready to think again?
exactly. And isn't that funny? Because 9 months in, 9 months
Nine
out,
months
and
out.
then you're like, my brain is okay. And I think it's almost like, okay, I kind of get what's going on now. That, yeah, I guess their naps start being a bit more predictable as well. They're starting to eat food. So, maybe not so reliant on you personally.
Yeah.
So it's just those kind of milestones. Um, but yeah, I mean, and I've heard this quite a lot of mums say, actually it was up to 2 years, because and your brain actually physically changes and then kind of doesn't go back to normal until 2 years, and that's the point when they were like, "Okay, I think I get this now."
Yeah.
But, again, that is just not what society allows, right? They don't allow you to honor that, to take that time, and I guess that's why, like, I feel like being able to have your own business and just do it how you need it to do and make
Yeah.
it look the way it needs to look, is so
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. I feel like in my mind, like you said, around the 9-month mark might be the time I start thinking about like, okay, do I still want to take the full year off? Am I ready to start dipping my toe back in? And I feel like with the Your Mama Era account, I'm still going to use that as a bit of a diary for myself. So obviously being pregnant right now, I'm sharing a lot of, updates and like diary entries that I recorded and funny reels and things like that, which is, I'm really loving doing that. And I feel like when the baby arrives, I'll probably still want to keep posting on that
Yeah.
account as more of
Yeah.
a way for me to look back and have some memories. But I think, around the 9 to 12 months marks, I might start to, think about posting some actual content again, for the business side of things, or I might not. Like I'm just going to be going in with a very open mind
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
seeing how I get on.
100%. Or you might
Yeah.
even just be able to message an old client and be like, "Hey, I'm actually ready to take one person on."
Yes, like
That's
starting small. That's my goal. Like just start small. I'm not going to go in there with like, right, I'm building the empire back up again. We're going to make £1 million in 5 minutes. I'm going to be very realistic about this and just see how I'm feeling, not put any pressure on myself. And, a year, it's like going to be like January 2026
Yeah.
once it's been a full year. And so much can change in that time.
Yeah.
I might feel like, do you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something completely different. Or I might think, I am so excited to get back to this. And
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of it. And that is the identity shift, isn't it? That you do feel like a new person once you become a mum. And who knows where I'll be in January 2026. But I like the fact that I will have the option to return if I want to. So yeah, I'm happy about that.
Yeah, yeah, totally powerful. So when I asked you for your top tips about starting your own business as a mum, you mentioned lots of things, grit and hard work and passion, but also I think having someone to help you to know what to do, suggest what to do, or just kind of coach you and kind of talk it through with you. So if someone has been listening to this and is like, okay, I think this is what I need, how can people find you and what kind of help can they get from you?
Well, there's 2 accounts now that you can find me on based on where you're at in your life and journey. So you can find me at Social Cactus Coaching on Instagram. You can find me at your Mama Era on my other account. And that would be the best place to find me at the moment. So what I decided to do, because baby is coming quite soon, I'm offering intensive one-to-one coaching sessions. This is something that I haven't really done for years and years and years. Like the only way that people have been able to work with me is in my longer term programs. And I just wanted something that was flexible for me and flexible for my clients based on where they're going to be at in their journey as well. So I've got 3 intensive options available. I've got a 60 minutes, I've got a 2 hour, and I've got a half a day as well. So based on where you're at, what support you need, what it is that you're working towards depends on which offer would suit you best. But yeah, just very, very simple way to work with me right now. All one-to-one, all fun, all on Zoom, unless you live locally and you want to meet up in person. I'm happy to do that as well. But yeah, Instagram is the best place to find me.
Perfect. I'll put the links to all of that in the show notes as well so people can follow up.
Fabulous.
It's been
Yay.
really fun to talk to you, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. And maybe in a year's time, we'll come back and reassess and see how things have
Oh
been
my
going.
God. I would
That'll
love
be the
that.
9.
Let's do a part 2.
I know, because that'll be the 9-month mark, right? So we'll see
Yeah.
what how have you been getting
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, we'll come back and I'll laugh at my old self, like, ha, ha, ha. You thought you were just going to be tired.
She had no idea. No, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be roller coaster, but it's going to be amazing.
Yes. And any mums, new mums, pregnant mums, come and say hello to me on Instagram. Give me one piece of advice that I need to know about being a new mum in my 30s.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll do that. All right. Thank you so much, Amy. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.